Welcome to Mom's, and in this video I have the Brother Fb1757x. I'm going to show you how to get started on. This also comes in green. It may have some other colors, but I got this one at Joann's. It was on Doorbuster for $99. So first let's look and see what all you get. You get the machine. Here's your foot pedal and your electric attachment, and that's going to plug in right down here on the end. You also get this nice flatbed that goes with it. So let me show you how you would attach that. This is your accessory compartment. It just pulls off, and you could put a few accessories in there. When you take it off, this has legs under it, so you would extend both of those, and then it's just going to slip right where that attachment was, and that'll give you some extra room if you want it. Then when you're finished, it just slides off, those close, and you can slip this right back on. Okay, now for accessories, you're going to get 4 of these Class A bobbins. There's one in the bobbin compartment. We'll pull that out in a minute. You get a buttonhole foot. This is foot A. This is a zipper foot. So I got one narrow piece in the center. This is a foot to put buttons on with the blue tip. This is a feed dog cover. You'll use this when you are putting on the buttons, so that goes with that. This interesting little thing is your screwdriver, and you get a pack of needles. So you also get several pieces of literature, booklets, and whatever telling you how to operate it. So the very first thing you're going to need is some thread. It doesn't really matter what kind of thread at this point. I'll put a link down below. I have a video that discusses the different types of thread, but you're going to need some thread and a little piece of fabric to get started. So first we're going to learn how to wind a bobbin and insert the bobbin, and then we'll look at how to thread the top, and then we'll see how to do a straight stitch. So that should get you going pretty well. So the next thing we're going to do is wind a bobbin. So let me come around to the other side so we can get some better views, and we'll get a bobbin wound and inserted. So first let's remove the bobbin that's in here. You're just going to pull this back towards you, and it'll come right up. Now this bobbin will just lift right out of there. Just pull it out. Okay, now we're going to go to the top to wind it. So first you're going to put your spool of thread on your post here. Make sure that the thread is coming off the front part of your spool. Okay, you see how it's coming off the front. Put that on your spool. All right, now here is your guide. So what you want to do first is come in this slit. So you're going to come in right behind it there. Now this post here, we need to wrap it around there. So put your finger on your thread right here. That's going to give you a little bit of tension there. And you're going to come to this front part and then cross around, make an X. And I want you to pull on that to make sure that the thread gets seated underneath this tension guide. Okay? Now we're going to pull it all the way over here. This is where your bobbin is going to go. So we have our bobbin. Now if you notice, in your bobbin, there's a little hole there. Now on one side, that little round thing, it might look like a hole, but it's not a hole. So find the hole, and we're going to thread this from the bottom of that top disc up through that hole. Just like that. Okay? Now see, it's only going through one part of your bobbin. You see how I have that threaded there? Okay? And then we're just going to come over here and pop it down on that post. Now to engage it, we're going to slide it over to the right till you hear a click. Okay? Now hold your thread up and out of the way. You're not pulling on it, you're just keeping it from getting sucked back out. And you're going to press on the foot pedal to make it spin. Now once I get a few rounds, I just clip that part off and then spin until it's full. Now once it gets almost full, or once it gets full, it's going to start pressing against this and it will disengage itself. Now you see it quit spinning, so that means it's full. So we're going to press this back to the left, take this off, and then we're going to cut our thread right there. Okay, now we're ready to insert it into the bobbin compartment. So now we're ready to put the bobbin in. You're going to hold your bobbin so that your thread comes off the left-hand side. You see how it's coming off the left? And then you're just going to drop it right in the compartment there. Now, pull your thread off to the right. You want it going over to the right because we're fixing to have to slip it down in here. There is a little metal slot right here. There's like a thin edge and then there's a thicker metal that sits in it. We're going to have to drop that thread down in that slot and let it get wedged in between there. And the way you want to do that, pull it to the right first, then ease it straight down towards you and it will slip right in there and then come back up towards your right. Now this channel over here will cut your thread. You can just follow the channel and cut it off. I don't usually like to cut mine off. I like to have a longer tail than what that leaves me. So now we can put the top back on there. If you want to check your bobbin, pull on it. And if it starts to go across your bobbin, then it's not in your straight, in your groove where it needs to be. Okay, so let's put this back on now and let's go do the top. So now let's get ready to thread the top. The first thing you want to do is make sure that your needle is in the uppermost position. So you're going to turn your hand wheel. You always turn it towards yourself. You're going to turn that so that the little raised ridge is lined up with the crease here. That lets you know that your needle is in the uppermost position. The next thing you need to do is make sure that your presser foot is raised. The way you raise and lower your presser foot is with that lever right there. So that's down and that's up. Okay. Now this is just a snap-in foot. So if it should happen to fall off, which they do, like that, all you have to do is line the bar up with the groove and just let it back down and it will snap right back into place. So now you have your needle in the uppermost position and you have your presser foot raised. Now put a spool of thread, make sure that your post is as far up as it'll go. Put a spool of thread there, make sure it's coming off the front. Alright, so we are going to go over here to the slot just like we did the bobbin, but you are not going to use that round. Okay, we're just going to follow. If you notice, they're numbered. See, right here is number 2. So we're just going to drop that right down in there. Now, this is why it's important that you have your presser foot raised. Inside here are your tension discs, and they squeeze together to put tension on the thread as it's coming through the machine. When you have the foot up, those discs are far apart. So when you drop the thread in there, the thread gets in between them. When you put your foot down, those discs are shut. So the thread may or may not get in there properly. So just make sure that your foot is up. Now that we've dropped it right down that channel, you see where the 3 shows it going back up? So we're going to go up. Now when you go up in this next channel, you're going to need to pull the thread to the right. Right here, and you can see it, there is a little metal and it's a hook. It like comes up and then it goes back around. You've got to come around to this back and circle back through, and you want it to go through the curved part of the hook. So pull your thread off to the right, just slide it back to the channel, then we're going to come over to this other side and pull it right back down. Okay, and I'm going to wiggle this a little so you can see that. You see that hook in there? that brought it right to the front. So it should be at the front of that metal hook. And then we're going to drop it right back down in the channel. Same one. Now, the next guide we're going to hit is this one right here. There's like this metal block, and then there's like this thin piece right under here. There's actually a hole right there. So we want to slip it in between the block and the thin piece and then have it drop down. So the way to do that is hold your thread so that it's horizontal. And with your thumb, put it right in between there, and it's going to snap in, and then you can pull it forward. Now, see, it's going right in there and coming out through the bottom. All right, now we're ready to get it in the needle, and you're just going to thread your needle from front to back. Just slip it right through the hole, front to back, then press it out the back and pull it out this other side. And then I always tuck it underneath, okay? Now we're going to pull up the bobbin thread. In order to sew, what this does is you have a thread on the top and a thread on the bottom. What's happening underneath here is the needle and the race, the part of the bobbin, it ties those threads together. So first we've got to get this bobbin thread coming out underneath this foot. That hole right there, the bobbin thread's going to come out. So what you want to do, hold your needle thread. That's my red thread. I'm just going to hold it. Then with your hand, you're going to turn the hand wheel towards you so that the needle goes down and comes back up. Then pull your needle thread, and what's going to happen is your bobbin loop came up as well. So now I have a red thread coming out of the needle and a bobbin thread coming out of that little moon-shaped hole right there. So now let's see if we can get geared up for a straight stitch. This dial right here, this is your tension on your needle thread. And the reason there's lines between the 3, 4, and 5 is because that's the most common tension. Now there is also tension on the bobbin, but it is a lot trickier to adjust, and it's been set by the factory. And the thing is, there's not a specific tension you need. If you can get the tensions to match, that's what's going to work best. So since the bobbin tension is already set, let's just go with it. And I'm going to stay with number 4 first because that's where it was set in the factory. Unless you're sewing on a specialty fabric or something, you really don't have to change your tension too much. And I'll go over how to do that in another video. Now over here, we're just going to pick a straight stitch. Stitches 6 through 11 are all straight stitches. If you notice the difference between 6 through 10, these are little tiny stitches, and number 10 is big long stitches. So that's just the only difference in choosing 6 through 10 is how long your stitches are. Now number 11, what it's going to do, if you change it to number 11, and there's your little marker right up there, it moves the needle over to the left-hand side. And there are certain applications where you want your needle further to the left, but I'm just going to put it on, say, 8, so we can see what it does. This button right here will put you in reverse. As long as you're holding this down, the machine is going to sew in reverse. And this right here, which you would have to have a screwdriver to adjust, that's for when you use buttonholes. You see the picture there, how one side is real tiny and the other side is real wide. When you're doing a buttonhole, you know, you have the part on one side and then it goes up the other. If they're off, if one is a lot tighter than the other, you can adjust that here. So this is for buttonhole adjustments. And we'll look at some of these other stitches later on, but for now, let's just get you going with a straight stitch. So I am just going to put a piece of fabric under here, and with my lever I'm going to let that down. Now I always hold both my threads off because I don't want them to get sucked up in there. So with my hand I'm going to turn the wheel towards me so that the needle goes down in the fabric. Okay, and I still hold on to my threads for a stitch or two because I don't want them to get sucked back into the bobbin compartment. All right, so give it a little bit of gas. And if you get to the end and you want to do what we call lock your stitch, that's when you would hold this down and just do a couple of stitches and then sew back forward. Now, lift your foot up, okay, and you're going to slide your fabric out. Now, what if it won't come? Well, there's a certain point when the tension is released on your thread. So that just means your needle is not in the uppermost position. If the fabric won't come out from under there, turn the hand wheel until you feel that ridge up at the top, and then it will slide right out. Now, right here on the end, there's a thread cutter. You can just run it right down there. And this is what your stitches are going to look like. You see there's red on the top and there's blue on the bottom, okay? And that was stitch number 8. So if you go to 10, the stitches are going to get longer. If you go to 6, the stitches are going to get shorter, okay? So that was the very basics of the Brother Fb1757. Let me know if there's anything in particular that you'd like for me to do a video on, and that should have gotten you started. So go sew, have fun, and don't listen to people that tell you about all these rules. Just enjoy your machine.